I'm Noah from American Trucks, and you're looking at the C&L black oil separator for the passenger side, fitting the 19 to 22 5.7 liter Ram 1500. Sludge buildup in a motor is something to be taken very seriously. Now, an oil separator, also known as a catch can, is a great investment if you're looking to maintain the power of your Ram and increase the longevity of your motor. This oil separator is a drop-in upgrade, so you can be confident on pulling the trigger as a DIYer. Now, everything you need to get this guy plumbed up in the kit, like the hoses and all the mounting brackets, even the hose clamps, are all included in the kit. Then the can itself has a 2.25 ounce capacity and a nice little drain here at the bottom, so you can just open that and let the sludge come out rather than remove the whole thing to drain it out. Now, this kit also reuses the factory PCV, or positive crankcase ventilation fittings, so there's no modification to your motor required. So the construction on this separator is very stout. It's made from aluminum, so it will never rust because of the moisture that it keeps inside of it. Then the fittings here on the sides are made from brass, so you don't have to worry about them starting to corrode either. Then to top it all off, there's a nice tasteful C&L logo here that can be seen from the top of the engine bay, and it looks very nice. Coming in around 80 bucks, C&L's oil separator really is the bit in the horse's mouth. This little guy doesn't cost much at all, but it really could make or break the longevity of your Ram's motor. I'd say in terms of preventative maintenance, this is a great buy. The cheap price point makes this separator a no-brainer in my opinion. Installing this separator is very simple since everything is plug and play. All you need is included in the kit, and the install should take you right around 30 minutes, making this job an easy 1 out of 3 wrenches of difficulty. Now, speaking of install, I'm gonna hand you over to one of the guys in the shop, and they're gonna walk you through the process step by step and get this guy installed on our Ram.
Tools required for this install include a ratchet, 10, 13, and 19 millimeter wrenches, a flathead and Phillips head screwdriver, a marker, 10 and 13 millimeter sockets, and a razor blade. What's up, guys? Today we're installing an oil separator on our Ram, so let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is disconnect our PCV line. To get to that, we need to remove the 2 10 millimeter bolts on the top of our engine cover, and then we can just pull that forward to get that out of the way. So our first bolt is tucked away in this little cutout here on the passenger side. So we'll grab our 10 millimeter socket to get down in there and remove that. And then our next one's right in front of our oil cap. And then we can just lift up and pull forward. Now with our engine cover removed, we get access to our PCV hose. Now we have one clip here that we're gonna have to pop off and get this out of. There's a little ledge right there that you can get a flathead screwdriver on and pop out. Next, we can start to disconnect our PCV hose. So on the front, we'll just pull it right out of that hose, and then we can move on to the back. And now at the back, right above our fuel rail, we can just pull forward on this and remove our PCV hose. So now when we went to remove our bolts, the 2 studs came out with them. So we're gonna grab a 13 millimeter wrench on our stud and a 10 millimeter socket on our bolt to separate them, since our catch can is gonna be mounted in between those 2. So now we'll grab that 13 millimeter wrench to put on our stud and our 10 millimeter socket to remove our bolt. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side. Now we can reinstall our studs. The one with the silver threads on the bottom is going on the driver's side. So we'll thread that back in right in front of our oil cap. And then we'll take our 13 millimeter socket to tighten it down. Now on our passenger side, we're gonna be using the stud with the black threads, and we'll thread that back into our fuel rail and tighten it down with a 13 millimeter socket. Now the last thing we need to do is come back and pull this hose off from right below our throttle body. So we'll just wiggle that off just like that. So now we're ready to assemble our new catch can. So we need to thread in our valve as well as install our mounting bracket. So our bracket's getting installed with these 2 Phillips head screws with flat washers, and we'll tighten those down with our Phillips head screwdriver and then tighten our valve down with our 19mm wrench. So first we'll install our mounting bracket. Now this little flap is going away from our fittings here. So we'll line that up and get our screws threaded in. And we'll tighten that down with our Phillips head screwdriver. And then we can flip that over to the threaded hole on the back side. We're going to be threading in our valve. We'll thread that in by hand and then give it a little bit extra with our wrench. Now you want to make sure that the valve is closed, which is this little lever pointing sideways. So now we're ready to mount our catch can. We're going to be coming down to the firewall on the passenger side. There are these 2 studs that are paint matched to the body. We're going to be using the one on the right side. So we'll slide our catch can over that stud, and then we can install our included nut onto our stud. Now there's not a lot of space to get a ratchet and socket on that stud, so I'm going to use a 10mm wrench to tighten that the rest of the way down. Next we can get our hose figured out. Now we only get 1 strip of hose, so we're going to have to make a cut for our other one. So the bottom fitting on our catch can is going to be running up to the top here towards the back. So we'll just slip this onto that line and run that up. And then we'll take a Sharpie to make a mark where to make our cut. And now we can pull this off and take this over to the table to make our cut. So now that we have our mark down on our hose where we need to cut, you can get your favorite cutting tool. I'm just going to be using a razor blade, and we'll make our cut. Now once you've measured out and cut your first piece of hose, you can take the remainder back, do the same thing for our other fitting, and make your cut on this hose. So now we're ready to install our first tube. I've got our 2 clamps on there. We're going to go to the bottom fitting on our catch can and then to the rearmost fitting on our engine. And then we can grab a Phillips head screwdriver to tighten down our 2 clamps. Now we can do that same thing for our next hose. We're going to be using the top fitting on our catch can and the frontmost fitting in our engine bay. Now we can come back and tighten down our clamp. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side of our line. And now lastly, we can reinstall our engine cover. These 2 little studs are going into the grommets in the back of our engine bay. Now we can reinstall our 2 bolts that hold our engine cover into place. We'll tighten each of those down with a 10mm socket. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the C&L Black Oil Separator for the passenger side of your 2019 and newer 5.7 liter Ram 1500. Thank you for watching, and for all things Ram, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.